Good morning po sa lahat. Magandang umaga. Good morning kay Kong Chel and Kong Ace at sa lahat po na nandito. Natapos na po yung first week ng impeachment trial. And we saw first week as allegations turning into evidence. So every prosecution ho kasi starts with allegations and must end with proof. So, yung first week po ay importante dahil the prosecution started converting the allegations as contained in the articles of impeachment into evidence which was tested or which was subjected to cross-examination. Although, first witness pa lang po yun. So, hindi pa po nagtatapos ang impeachment sa first witness. May particular role na ginampanan yung first witness, si Senior Agent John Mark Calilong. At yung pinaka-role niya nga po ay yung pag-authenticate nung mga video recordings ni VP Sara na containing the threats against the life of the President, the First Lady, and the former House Speaker. So mahalaga po yun na nasimulan yung pag-convert ng aligasyon into evidence. At susundan pa ho ito ng mga ilang witnesses either would corroborate or lalong ipapaalam, i-explain yung anong ibig sabihin ng mga ebidensya na yon, yung ebidensya ng authentication, and ano yung naging resulta ng investigasyon ng NBI doon sa mga recordings na yon. So yun po ang kahalagaan ng first week. Nagsimula na po ang pag-convert ng aligasyon into evidence. Kasi yan po ang pinakamahalaga. Hindi yung aligasyon, kundi yung ebidensya, kahit anuman po ang isang kaso. Lalo na po ito. Ito ay malaking kaso. So hindi rin po ito nagtatapos sa isang testigo lang. Ang kabuuan po ng ebidensya, ang tunay na pundasyon ng isang kaso. Because every witness has a specific role to play. And now we saw the first witness playing his very important role of authenticating the videos. Although hindi na ho naging issue. Magiging issue yung authenticity. Kasi sila mismo, yung kabila, napansin nyo po, na actually nagpakita rin po sila ng certain portions of the video. So admission po yon, nagpapakita na wala silang kine-question sa pagdating sa issue ng authenticity. Thank you.
Magandang umaga po sa mga kasama ko sa entablado, mga kaibigan natin sa media, at lahat ng nanonood at nakikinig. Nabanggit ko na ito dati. Ang trabaho ng prosecution ay parang magtatayo kami ng bahay. At syempre, hindi naman tayo pwede magtayo ng bahay kung walang pundasyon. Yung nangyari itong unang linggo ng ating paglilitis ay mismo yung paglalagay ng pundasyon sa kaso, lalong-lalo na sa Article 4. Itong mga darating na linggo, ang makikita natin yung bahay na mismo ang itatayo. At yun ang pagkakaiba ng prosecution sa defense. Ang defense ay, kumbaga, sila yung nagiging demolition ng bahay. Pero sa amin ay kailangan maitayo namin yung bahay. At ang purpose siyempre nun ay makita ng lahat. Hindi lang naman yung mga senator judge, kundi pati ang nanonood na publiko, kung ano ba talaga ang basehan, kung bakit ba may ganitong articles of impeachment, at bakit umaabot siya doon sa paglalabag sa ating konstitusyon o pagtataksil sa tiwala na binigay ng mamamayan sa ating mga leader. Kaya ito po ang makikita natin sa mga darating na linggo. Bawat article ay ganun din ang magiging tungkulin ng prosecution. Salamat po.
Ma'am, siguro po tanong ko muna bago kami lumayo for us non-lawyers. So, Yun pong si Agent Kalilong ay inimbita bilang testigo para patunayan ng authenticity ng recording. Dahil ginamit nung depensa yung bahagi ng recording at ipinresenta nila, ibig po bang sabihin wala ng debate, authentic yung video recording?
Para sa amin po sa prosecution, wala na pong debate dyan. Parang pinapakita nila na authentic. Bakit sila magpapakita ng portions of the same video kung hindi sila naniniwala na ito ay authentic? But I could not go further from that because that was already going to the merits of the case. Yung ebidensya na po yan, yung pag-i-evaluate po yan ng evidence. Pero to suffice it to say na sa tingin namin ay hindi na magiging issue yung authenticity. At pinakita na nga ay yung proseso, in-explain, inano sa atin, pinakita sa atin ni Agent Kalilong paano ino-authenticate ang isang video recording. Step by step, lumabas po yun doon sa direct examination at wala naman pong na biyak na anumang parte doon sa testimonya ni Agent Kalilong. Kahit po under the crucibles or the test of cross-examination, because a cross-examination is a stress test, it's really a stress test, and therefore kapag hindi bumibigay ang ebidensya, ay ito ay lalong tumitibay after cross-examination. At yun po ang tingin namin dun sa pag-cross-examination kaya Senior Agent Mark Kalilong na lalong tumibay yung kanyang testimonya after cross-examination.
Sige, bigyan natin ng pagkakataon si former Congressman Ace Barbers. Ano yung impression niyo dun sa, ano yung analysis niyo dun sa first 3 days ng impeachment trial?
Magandang umaga ho sa ating mga kaibigan sa media at sa lahat po ng nanonood. Gusto ko lamang pong susugan yung sinabi ng ating dalawang prosecutors dito sa impeachment trial na ito, na yung unang witness na ipinakilala at ipinakita dito sa trial na ito, dito sa paglilitis na ito, ay ang nag-lay out ng foundation. No? Borrowing the analogy of Prosecutor Chel Jokno, ang sinasabi po natin dito, na ilatag po ng mabuti yung pundasyon. At ang mga subsequent witnesses and evidence that will be presented will definitely give more strength doon sa kaso na inilatag dito sa Article 4. Ang ibig pong sabihin, halimbawa po yung mga susunod po na mga witness na ipakikilala will for example, si Attorney Jeremy Lotok, no? Lotok, he will definitely tell the people, sasabihin po niya dito sa ating paglilitis na ano yung inumpisahan ng proseso ng pag-authenticate nito, anong kahalagahan ng authentication nito, etc., etc. But again, borrowing the statements of Prosecutor De Lima, sinabi naman po ng kabilang panig na hindi ho nila nirebat, dinebunk itong authenticity ng video na ito. In fact, ginamit nila ito sa kanilang pagkocross doon sa aming witness. And this alone gives the idea na authentic itong video to dahil isang video lang ho yung pinag-uusapan, isang video lang ho yung ginamit. So, the rest of the statements of our witnesses will definitely strengthen the case in this Article 4. Yun lamang po.
Kung Chel, yung mga tanong, kasi kung for us ng lawyers, ang pagkakaunawa namin, si Agent Kalilong ang mag-authenticate ng recordings. Ibang mga tanong na, 2 linggo ka lang pala namang lisanay eh. Eksperto ba yung 2 linggo? May panunuya ng mga uri ng pagtatanong. Hiningi pa yung credentials niya ng isang uncredentialed person din. Yun ba may weight pa? O wala na? Kasi pumunta na naman doon siya para sabing authentic yung recordings eh.
Kasama sa isang paglilitis yan na sa cross-examination, lahat ay questionin ng kabilang panig. Pero ang kailangan hindi mawala sa atin yung common sense at yung ating mismong alam tungkol sa mga bagay na yan. Sa tingin namin ay naging klaro naman at malinaw ang sinabi ni Agent Calilong. At kahit sa ating karanasan din, sa ating experiences sa social media, alam naman natin kung ano yung fake at ano yung hindi. Kaya actually sa isang impeachment case, hindi lang naman ang mga senators ang naghuhusga. Lahat din naman tayo ay naghuhusga. At naalala ko sa mga dating impeachment cases, pag nakakausap ko yung mga kasama natin na mga nasa tindahan, yung mga lahat na nanonood, nako, alam na alam nila yung testigo at meron din silang mga sariling pananaw. Yung maganda lang kasi sa impeachment, napapanood natin lahat. Hindi na yan dumadaan sa kwento pa ng broadcaster o kung sino man. Mismo tayo ang nakakita. At sa tingin ko, it's very clear naman yung naging malinaw at very accessible ang sinabi ni Agent Calilong.
Opo, yung pong katanungan at maaaring naging kasagutan na wala namang direktang knowledge o may knowledge mang direkta yung NBI agent na may kinontratang assassin. Yun po ba'y may weight against or for doon sa kanyang dahilan ng pagtestigo?
Sa kanyang pagtetestigo, wala yon. Dahil ang trabaho lang naman niya ay i-authenticate ang video. Pero siyempre, ang tanong po ninyo ay mas legal yan eh. Kung yun ba ay requirement ng ating batas. At klaro naman sa ating batas na ang threat, assuming na threat nga yan, ay yun ay mismo yung mismong akto na sinasabi natin na lumalabag sa ating konstitusyon. So wala naman requirement sa ilalim ng ating batas na meron talagang tinuluyan ba. Iba kasi yun eh. Pag tinuloy, iba naman ang magiging charge doon.
Okay. Kayo po'y matagal sa issue ng human rights, pati si Congresswoman Laila de Lima. Meron po bang conditional threat?
Ang pagkakaalam po natin, wala po. There's no such thing as conditional threat because threat is a threat. Kapag manakot ang isang tao against another one, o kaya against the members of his family, and yung pananakot na yun is something that is amounting to crime. And that is really grave threats. Ano yung crime na tinatakot dito o yung pagbabanta? Ito yung pagpapatay doon sa Pangulo, sa First Lady, and the former Speaker. So, and with or without condition, kahit nga po maituturing na merong kondisyon, yun na nga po yung kondisyon niya na kung mamatay siya, ay patayin ang Pangulo, First Lady, and the former Speaker, ay hindi pa rin ho yan nawawala sa definition o sa elements ng grave threats under the revised penal code. Tsaka dapat rin po nating maintindihan dito na we're talking about impeachment here. At pag sinasabi po natin grave threats, yes, mas maganda na ito ay something that is constitutive of a crime, pero hindi po ibig sabihin na striktong i-apply ngayon yung mga elements ng isang krimen. Kasi pwedeng ang isang bagay, ang isang act, ang isang conduct ay hindi siya per se or strictly a criminal offense, pero maipapasok na impeachable offense sa ilalim ng betrayal, sa konsepto ng betrayal of public trust. Pero dito po, malinaw naman po, merong grave threats at with or without condition, it's still a threat. And therefore wrong, and therefore criminal, and therefore impeachable.
Doon sa...
May dagdag ko lang po, sorry. Tama si Kong Laila, hindi naman ang usaping impeachment ay hindi naman usaping criminal na kaso. Ang pinag-uusapan, ang pinakapuso ng isang impeachment case ay yung katampatan ng naglilingkod o yung fitness ng isang public servant na maglingkod sa kanyang posisyon. Pagdating sa impeachment, syempre, ang pinag-uusapan natin ay yung pinakamatataas na mga posisyon sa ating pamahalaan. Kaya ang ang mata na dapat gamitin natin dito sa Article 4 pagdating sa threats ay ito ba ay batay sa ebidensya? Will this establish that the Vice President is fit or not to hold her office? Ayun po. Thank you.
Nag-introduce ang defense ng new element dito sa kaso. Sinabi ng isang lawyer na mayroong Operation Romanov na ostensibly natakot mismo ng lubos si Vice President Duterte na papatayin siya at ang kanyang pamilya. Is this a plausible defense ng...
Para sa amin po, immaterial yan. Para sa amin ay hindi dapat nito ay maaari nating sabihin na justified yung grave threats. Hindi po yan dapat gamitin na justification or reason because a threat has been made just explicitly. It was openly and publicly admitted doon sa live stream. So, hindi po ito pwedeng i-invoke yung mga ganyan na mga pangyayari para i-justify yung paggawa ng pagbabanta. Na-consummate na po yung pagbanta, and kung ano man yung mga dahilan ng pagbanta ay hindi na po dapat ito ay magiging relevant. Kasi ang tinitingnan dito ay nagkaroon ba ng threat. Ano yung mga nag-trigger nun? And it's up for them to prove that it's the real trigger. And even if it is the trigger of the outburst, of the rants, ay hindi pa rin ito lalabas sa krimen ng grave threats. And ang pinaka-importante, yung punto po ni Kong Chel, na it goes into the fitness of the public official, of the impeachable official or the impeached official. Yung tama bang asal yan? Tama bang conduct yan? Tama ba yan sa isang second highest official of the land na basta-basta na lang babanta sa buhay against the highest official? Thank you.
Kay Kong Ace po. Kong, on another note, nitong mga nagdaang araw, bago nagpasimula itong paglilitis, paulit-ulit na sinasabi ng prosecution na manangan sa ebidensya. Pero nakikita natin yung mga kalaban, yung katunggali, patindi ng patindi yung bashing, patindi ng patindi yung bullying. Ano ang ginagawa ng mga tagapagsalita o ng communications group ng prosecution panel para masiguro na matumbok ng publiko yung pinakadiwa ng prosesong ito?
Well, sa panig ng prosecution ay patuloy yung aming pagkikwento ng mga ebidensyang inilatag. No? At yung nakafocus dito doon sa kahalagahan ng statement na binitawan ng aming witness. No? We do not go over the statements na ipinahayag. Dahil pagka ganun, papatulho kami doon sa mga hindi dapat patulan. No? According to one of our colleagues, sabi nga niya, yung mga ganyan mga pagpakalat ng fake news at pagbabash doon sa mga membro ng prosecution panel, bread and butter na po yan nung katunggali. No? At yan po ay hindi ho bago dahil from the beginning, hindi pa ho, pinag-uusapan pa lang ho sa Committee on Justice itong usaping ito, tuloy-tuloy ho yung pambabash nila. And all those who are participating and wanting the truth to come out, lahat ho yan ay binash nila. Hindi ho natin kailangan sigurong sagutin yung kanilang mga pagpapakalat ng mga fake news at paninira, no, doon sa mga miyembro ng prosecution panel.
So, how would you describe yung so-called operation Romanov? Is this a ploy to distract the attention of the public from the real score?
Kung natatandaan po natin, natanong ho yan doon sa aming witness. At ang sagot ng witness, inimbestigahan ho nila yung Oplan Romanov na sinabi nung isa doon sa participant, doon sa video. Apparently, no, they were extending invitation. Inimbitahan ho nila itong mga ito. At hindi naman ho sila nag-cooperate, no, sa NBI. So, again, kung hindi magko-cooperate at hindi mas-substantiate yung sinasabing Romanov na yan, yan po ay figment of their imagination.
Kung guys, paano mo mapapaniwala yung mga tao sa nagaganap na at nakikitang katotohanan? Di ba yung kasabihan, we can see the color of things based on our own prism.
I'm sorry, Ariel, ano yung...
Paano natin mapapaniwala yung tao? Nakikita na nila yung debate, yung presentation ng ebidensya at yung mga counter dun sa ebidensya. Diyan, ano ba yung kasabihan? May prism tayo eh. Yung color prism. Kung ano yung nakatakip sa mukha natin, kulay ng salamin, yun ang makitingin natin. Dilaw yan o pula, depende dun sa prism natin. And that prism is,
Yeah.
yun ang mahirap basagin.
Mahirap talagang basahin kasi iba yung tinitingnan sa tinititigan. So in this case, talagang makikita mo no na doon sa nagsusubo ng mga impormasyon para maialis ang focus doon sa totoong katotohanan o yung katotohanan, hindi ho dapat binibigyang pansin yan. Ang para sa amin ho, doon tayo nakatutok sa ebidensya, ilatag itong ebidensya, isubstantiate itong ebidensya, pagtibayin ang ebidensya nang sa ganon mabasa ng ating mga senator judges at ng ating mga kababayan kung ano yung kahalagahan at importansya nitong mga ebidensyang ito.
Ma'am, siguro itatanong ko po sa inyo kasi madalang-dalang yung ganitong magkaroon tayo ng mga legal expert eh. May tinatanong po sila na pinipilit, sino ba yung original na nag-record? Ang tanong ko po sa inyo, not necessarily din sa impeachment, nung araw po, pag nademanda kami ng libel sa broadcast, ang kinukuha, yung in-record ng technician ng station, nag-iisa. Ba't naman tanong ko sa inyo, in digital era, meron pa bang ganun? O nag-iba na ang tingin ng korte sa mga ebidensya pwedeng ipresenta?
Well, unang-una, yung naging issue ng original at copy. Nagbago na kasi yung rules on evidence natin. At ngayon, dati kasi naging stricto yan eh. Na kung let's say Xerox lang yung tawag natin ay hindi basta-basta tinatanggap ng hukuman. Pero ngayon, basta't wala namang issue, na tunay na issue doon sa kopya, ay tinatanggap na ng ating mga korte ang mga photocopy or duplicates. So, una yon. Pagdating let's say sa mga papel, ay klaro na yan. Basta't sabihin ng testigo, for example, faithful reproduction o accurate yung yung nakalagay sa kopya, tatanggapin na yon. At yun na yung ngayon na umiiral na rule sa ating court. Yung pagdating naman sa video, may mga iba't ibang klase na ngayon ng pag-authenticate ng video. So, nandun pa rin yung dati, yung nabanggit ninyo, na yung mismong nag-record ang cameraman, siya ang testigo. Meron din yung, kahit hindi siya cameraman, pero andun siya, na panood niya mismo ng kanyang mga mata, ma-authenticate din niya yon. No. Yan ang nasa rules on electronic evidence natin. Ngayon din, dahil nagbabago nga ang technology ngayon, at kung nanggagaling sa mga social media platform yung video, ay dahil sila ang may hawak nun, galing sa kanila yun eh. So, pwede rin nilang i-authenticate yung galing sa kanilang social media platform. And these are evolving methods of authentication. At sabi nga ng ibang mga legal expert, palaging nahuhuli ang batas sa nangyayaring teknolohiya. So ngayon pa lang actually humahabol yung rules natin of evidence pagdating sa ganitong mga klaseng pag-authenticate. At hanggang ngayon, marami pa rin tanong ang mga abogado, paano ba kaya, let's say, post sa Facebook, paano mo ngayon i-authenticate yan? At ngayon lang lumalabas yung mga kinaklaro ng ating Supreme Court kung paano nga dapat gagawin yan.
Sige po, doon po sa nabanggit na papel na Xerox.
Dagdag ko lang po ng konti. Doon po sa ginawa ni Senior Agent John Mark Calilong, in-explain naman niya, pinakita naman po yung pinaka-proseso. Nakasama nga ho dyan yung retrieval, the viewing, the collection, the preservation, then the authentication of the video. Yung proseso na yun ang sinunod niya. Kaya kahit hindi yun yung siya mismo talaga ang nag-record nun, ay because of this process of authentication which is admitted in court, yung ganyang proseso. And remember na si Senior Agent Calilong, part of his testimony in laying out his expertise and experience is that he's already able to testify in at least 30 cases on the matter of authentication of videos. So, malinaw na yung pinaka-proseso ng authentication ay sinunod ni Senior Agent. Kaya napatunayan na tunay yung ebidensya, tunay yung video recording.
Yung pong sa papel, Congressman Chel, of course, naging viral yun. Yung daw copy ay original sa ngayon. Halimbawa ako, medyo may pagkasawail at sutil. Nag-Xerox ako ng perang papel. Sinubukan kong ibayad sa restaurant. Pag tinanggap niya yon o hindi tinanggap, ako po ba'y pwedeng kasuhan?
Iba naman yun, ha? Kasi ang pinag-uusapan
Kasi
natin...
ginagawa po yan. Ginagawa yun. Sinabi sa mga social media
Oo.
posting.
Iba yon kasi ang pinag-usapan natin kung ano yung tatanggapin ng korte. Hindi naman yung tatanggapin sa restaurant. Ha? yung issue kasi sa korte, ano yun dati talagang stricto ang ating mga judge na basta't photocopy, hindi mo mailabas yung original, hindi tatanggapin yan. But now, they have changed that rule. And mas alinsunod yan sa international practice, kahit sa Amerika, sa iba't ibang mga jurisdiction, ganun na rin ang nagiging rule at batayan nila.
Apo.
Dahil basta't masabi ng testigo, magkapareho lang yan, it's a faithful reproduction, sapat na yon kahit na
Sige
photocopy
po.
siya.
Yung pong ginagawa ng iba na parang form of demonstration, ng protest kung matatawag man, na nagbabayad ng Xerox copy na pera, yun po ba pwedeng kasuhan ng paggamit ng falsifikadong pera?
Ang alam ko, maaring counterfeiting po yan. Yan ang matatawag natin na krimen. Opo.
Yung next, this week, magkakaroon ng testimony yung isa pang NBI agent. Ano yung expected na testimony niya?
Okay, we can only give the general look of the testimony. Kasi nga ho, okay, si Senior Agent Calilong, yung pundasyon, Senior Agent Calilong ay napatunayan nga na tunay yung video recording, authentic. Ang mangyayari naman ngayon in the case of Attorney Jeremy Lotok, who is a seasoned NBI investigator, a lawyer, NBI lawyer, sasabihin naman niya po, bakit at paano nila sinuri yung mga ebidensya, yung mga video na pinakita at inauthenticate dun sa testimony ni Senior Agent Calilong. So ano yung istorya doon? Paano nila, ano yung naging resulta ng kanilang investigasyon? Because he's the head agent of the team that investigated the threats. And syempre kasama yon yung mga video. So yun, paano, bakit, sinuri, ano yung resulta ng pagsusuri ng kanilang mga investigasyon, yung kanilang mga follow-up investigation din. Kasi nga si Senior Agent Calilong, he mentioned about yung mga open source investigation, and then susundan din ito ni Attorney Jeremy Lotok. So he will both be corroborating as well as adding certain aspects to the testimony of Agent Calilong, lalo na doon sa pinaka-investigasyon mismo at ano ang resulta, ano yung basehan nung kanilang konklusyon kung bakit rinifer nila at rinifer na nila o finorward nila sa DOJ. So meron silang finding na ito ay grave threats, na ito ay merong probable cause at the level of the investigators for a grave threats case. So kasama po yan. Ano yung mga circumstances, ano yung mga condition, ano yung seriousness nung mga pagbabanta na yon, ano yung umiiral na konteksto dun sa pagbabanta given the results of their investigation.
How about yung testimony ng Chief of Staff ni PP Sara, si Zuleika Lopez, as a hostile witness? Ano yung in-expect nyo defense?
Well, we cannot, of course, at this point, disclose kung ano yung magiging direction or focus ng investigation, especially that, of course, that she will be presented as a hostile witness. So, kung ano man ang, kasi nga ho, yes, nasabina na siya, and she is expected to appear, but tandaan din po natin na ang pag-assess po ng prosecution kung sino at ano ang susunod na ebidensya ay base yan, that would depend on the outcome of the testimony of the preceding witness. So isusunod ba kaagad si Attorney Zuleika o meron ba dapat kailangan mo nang ipresenta after Attorney Loto? It depends now on the outcome of the testimony of Attorney Loto.
Ma'am, samantalahin ko lang yung pagkakataon. The way the prosecution is now presenting the articles of impeachment, was this your original plan, or before the trial started, nagbago ba kayo ng legal tactic?
Ang pinaka-tactic pa rin syempre is that ano yung mga ebidensya na importante at sino mga testigong importante, sino yung mga testigo na makakatulong sa pagbuo ng istorya. Kasi nga foundation yung ginawa ni Senior Agent Mark Calilong. Yes, we may have initial the sequencing of witnesses. Meron hong initial listahan na ho yan. Meron na po yan initial na plano. Pero hindi ibig sabihin mag-i-stick lang doon sa plano na yon. Depende ho talaga kung ano yung makita, anong kakalabasan nung testimonya ng nakaupong testigo. So we have initial plans, and that is always subject to modification as we go along.
Parang, or another note, all the while we've been made to believe na si VP Sara will not appear personally dun sa impeachment court. Pero nasa news ngayon, may condition siya para mag-appear dun eh. Na humihingi yata ng refrigerator para dun sa niya, holding room. Tsaka sariling caterer. Nasa dyaryo.
Ang alam po namin is that nung pumunta si Attorney Lopez as reported in media, ay nakipag-discuss with kay Attorney Bantug, the clerk of the impeachment court, about administrative, so-called administrative matters. So kung ano po yung mga hiningi siguro. But I don't know if that is something to do with the expected appearance or the so-called conditional appearance of VP Sara.
Kay Attorney Chel po. Ang biggest elephant in the room kong yung issue ng threshold voting. Without going into the merits of this issue, may we know kung when can this be considered a justiciable issue at kailan pwedeng pumasok yung Korte Suprema para tuldukan itong usapin na ito?
Magandang tanong yan. Actually, balikan natin yung isang naging kaso noong pang 1949. Yun naman ang naging issue doon ay yung quorum ng Senado. Doon kasi natin makikita kung kailan nila pwedeng iakyat sa Supreme Court ang issue. Ang nangyari doon ay nagpasya na ang 12 miyembro ng Senado na sila ay quorum. At doon na lang inakyat ng kabilang panig yung issue. Dahil doon na lang nagkaroon talaga ng tinatawag natin na konkretong question na dapat pagdesisyonan ng ating Korte Suprema. Ngayon, ilagay natin sa konteksto ng impeachment dahil wala pa naman klarong kaso yan pagdating sa impeachment. Yung Avellino versus Cuenco ay quorum ang pinag-uusapan. Pagdating sa impeachment, sa ngayon, wala pa naman botohan. mangyayari yan under the Senate rules pag natapos na yung pagprepresenta ng ebidensya ng magkabilang panig at one count per article magbobotohan ang mga senator judge natin. So, sa tingin ko, kung ang magiging batayan natin yung dating mga kaso ng Supreme Court, ito ay personal kong opinion ha, magiging justiciable issue lamang yan pagka nangyari na, nagkabotohan na. At na umabot doon sa issue na ilan ba talaga? Let's say, ang naging vote ay 16 or more. O di wala na ang issue. Let's say, ang naging vote ay hindi man lang umabot ng 12. Wala rin issue. Pero, let's say, umabot ng 14 or 15. Doon lang magkaka-justiciable issue. Dahil doon lang pwedeng may magsabing senator, sandali lang, kung 14, let's say, 21 ang members, o di 2/3 na dapat yon. Doon na lang maaaring iakyat yan at pagdesisyon ng ating Supreme Court. Yan ang aking opinion.
I totally circumstances prevailing. Ano yung sitwasyon? Lahat ba nakapag-participate? Lahat na 24 senators, lumahok ba sila sa trial in the sense na nandun sila, nakikinig, nanonood, nagtatanong dun sa mga ebidensya? Right now, we do not know that yet. Yes, meron tayong 3 na wala ngayon. Yung isa nagtatago, fugitive from justice. Yung 2, nakakulong. Yung isa tried to ask permission already. Si Senator Jinggoy Estrada tried to ask permission from Sandigan Bayan na payagan siya na mag-attend. It was denied. Now, the time of the voting, ganun pa rin ho ba ang magiging sitwasyon? Meron ho ba tayong 3? Yung 3 na yan so far ay hindi pa rin makakapagboto kasi wala sila. They're not physically present. They're not functioning as senator judges. Ang pinakatanong, tama po ba yun? Under those circumstances, is it fair? Is it just? Is it reasonable? Is it logical? Na bibilangin sila doon sa functional base ng numero. Ang functional base, 24 ba talaga? Even if may ilan-ilan na outside, yung tinatawag sa Avelino versus Cuenco, outside of the coercive powers of the Senate, of the impeachment court. Yes, tama si Kong Chel, na first time ho natin na matetest yung issue na yan dito sa kaso na yan, dito sa kaso na ito, in an impeachment case. Wala pa hong naging issue on the interpretation of the 2/3. 2/3, ano yung functional or numerical base. Is it really 24, 23, 22? Depende sa kung sino-sino talaga, ilan talaga yung tunay na nakapag-participate doon sa session. Kaya yung usapin pa nga ng, pwede bang maituturing na essentially or effectively acquittal yung boto ng mga wala? Magiging essentially or effectively acquittal kapag kasama pa rin sila sa bilang, kapag 24 pa rin. Pero kung hindi na sila isasama sa bilang ng pag-compute ng 2/3, wala silang boto. So hindi pwedeng sasabihin na essentially acquittal yung mga boto ng mga wala ngayon. Ang importante, are they within or outside the coercive powers of the impeachment court? Pwede ba silang makompel? Hindi nga pinayagan yung isa ng Sandigan Bayan. Yung isa naman na fugitive from justice, pwede ba siyang lumitaw ngayon under pain of arrest na meron siyang outstanding warrant of arrest. So mga critical po yung mga issue na yan at hindi pa ho ripe because there is such a thing as doctrine of ripeness. Courts can only settle constitutional questions in the absence of an actual or fully developed controversy. Wala pa hong fully developed controversy dahil wala pa nga yung botohan. Hindi pa natin alam kung ilan talaga ang boboto. Kasi kung 16 yan, wala nang issue. Hindi na magiging issue. Pero kung less than 16, pero meron ilan-ilan na hindi nakapag-participate, pwede ba silang bilangin doon sa numerical base?
Parang yung
Yun po
ano yun?
pinakatanong.
How would you describe that? We should interpret the Constitution liberally and not accept yung 16 as a hard and fast figure na hindi dapat baguhin.
Ang mga interpretation kasi siyempre nagkakaroon ng interpretation kung hindi talaga malinaw o nagkakaroon talaga ng issue. Ang interpretation should always be done in a manner that is consistent with logical reasoning, not the point of being absurd. Kasi let's say madagdagan pa o meron pa whatever reason, gravely ill o nag-abroad at hindi nakasama sa botohan, ay gagawin pa bang 16 or gagawin pa bang 24 fixed minimum base ang botohan.
At kung magtatrabaho ng todo, si Boying, baka madagdagan pa. Ito yung nakakulong. Hindi tayo sigurado kung ilan. But anyway, habang merong tayong isipin tungkol sa bilang na yan, hindi ba Kong Ace, kayo nasa communications nito, alam naman natin na yung pagdami ng taga-suporta nung nasasakdal ay nakabatay sa paniniwalang popular yun eh. Mananalo kang senador uli kapag kumampi doon. Pero kayo po naatasan na magparating ng ganitong mga klase ng impormasyon sa tao. May traction ba? Na-erode ba yung the aura of invincibility politically ng Vice President?
Well, honestly, I cannot speculate kung ganun. Kasi ang aming focus ay hindi naman doon sa katunggali. Kundi ang aming focus ay yung paano ipapahayag ang naratibo na sumusuporta doon sa naratibo ng prosecution. Ano yung naratibo nasa likod ng pahayag ng aming witness? At ano yung naratibo doon sa bigat ng ebidensyang inilatag at pinakita sa taong bayan at sa impeachment court? Now, honestly, yung support na maaring binibigay doon sa respondent sa ngayon, ang ating pangalawang Pangulo, sa aming dito sa communications team, ay hindi naman namin iniisip yan. Basta ang aming iniisip kung ano yung tamang iparating sa taong bayan, ano yung dapat malaman ng taong bayan, ano yung kahalagahan nitong prosesong ginagawa natin dito sa paglilitis na ito, at ano yung kahalagahan ng mga impormasyon na galing mismo sa mga witnesses o sa ebidensya na inilatag ng prosecution.
Kung pagdadagdag lang sa tanong ni Ariel, bago nag-umpisa itong paglilitis, malinaw sa atin yung mga numero na sinasaad dun sa mga nagdaang surveys hinggil dito sa impeachment, kung paano sinusuportahan ng mayorya ng mga Pilipino itong pagpapatuloy ng trial. From Mary Sitcong, gaano ka-importante ang opinyon ng mga mamamayan for us to be guaranteed na this issue will be brought to its logical conclusion?
That's a very difficult question to answer. Pero ito lang ang aming paniwala dyan. Once makita, mailatag ang ebidensya, at ito'y madinig ng ating mga mamamayan, then ang ating mga mamamayan magkakaroon ng sariling opinion tungkol dito. And once mailatag ng mabuti at maipahayag kung ano yung gustong puntuhin itong mga ebidensyang ito at itong mga testimonya ng mga witnesses, we are confident na mabubuo sa kanilang isipan na may katotohanan itong ebidensyang ito. Therefore, dahil may katotohanan at bigat itong ebidensyang ito, it will now be concluded, perhaps favoring the stand of the prosecution. In other words, kung ito ang ating mga kababayan ay maniniwala dito sa ating inilatag na mga ebidensya, I am certain that even the senator judges would more or less form their own conclusion dito sa usaping ito at maaaring magkaroon ng desisyon base sa nakita nilang katotohanan.
It's 10 to 10. Before we let go of I would like to ask the two lawyers here. If an impeachment trial is both political and legal, saan ide-demarcate yung ano? Which is the political side and which is the legal side? Sinasabi nga na an impeachment trial is primarily to convince the public na tama yung position na tinatake ng prosecution. Meron bang hard and fast na doon? Kung ano yung political and legal?
Wala naman talagang hard and fast, pero syempre, legal ito dahil kailangan ng ebidensya. Legal ito, kailangan kasi matest yung mga ebidensya. Hindi pwedeng allegation lang, kundi ebidensya. At pagdating sa ebidensya, may mga rules of evidence na mga tinatawag. Political ito kasi hindi ito purely judicial proceedings. Hindi ito purely legal. Maski nga yung mga quantum of proof, yung mga ganon, syempre hindi applicable yung proof beyond reasonable doubt. Hindi rin pwedeng sabihin na hindi rin ito yung tinatawag na preponderance of evidence, hindi rin ito substantial evidence. Ano ba talaga? Kasi nga, kailangan yung tamang panunuri, tamang pag-assess ng ebidensya, but not necessarily bound by a certain standard. It depends on the judgment of the senator judges. It depends on how they assess the evidence, because this is not purely a criminal case. Kaya nga po kahit ang isang conduct, ang isang act ay hindi maituturing na isang krimen, pero pwedeng ilagay sa usapin ng fitness of the official, of the respondent, then impeachable. Then ito ay basis. It can be a basis for conviction. Makita doon sa mga nilalatag na mga ebidensya na ito ay nagpapakita ng kawalang basis ng pagkanyang pag-continue bilang isang opisyal, then pwede siyang i-convict. So, yes, there are rules of evidence, pero yes, hindi ibig sabihin stricto ito lahat i-apply. Hindi ibig sabihin na yung proof ay ayon din sa criminal cases. Kasi nga, this is sui generis. Diyan na pumapasok yung political aspect or political dimension of the impeachment case. And kaya nga, pinapayagan yung mga senator judges na naghahayag ng kanilang mga views din at nagtatanong. Pwede rin mag-manifest ang public prosecutors anytime. Dahil ito ay isang impeachment proceedings, hindi ito strictly a judicial process.
Kong Chel, huling tanong ko po. Alam po natin na ang isang posibleng maging outcome nitong paglilitis na ito, yung either ma-impeach yung pangalawang Pangulo. If ever po, ano po ba ang nakikita ninyong dapat na maging katangian nung kung sino man ang papalit sa kanya para nang sa ganon kahit paano mapaghilom yung malalim na sugat na idinulot nitong proseso na ito?
Sa tingin ko po, ang hinahanap talaga ng sambayan ng Pilipino ay yung tama at maayos na pamamahala. Yung kailangan natin, yung tinatawag natin na transformational leader. Yung alam niya yung problema ng ordinaryong mamamayan, alam niya yung mga sakit ng ating lipunan, at gagawin niya ang lahat para maayos ang buhay ng bawat Pilipino. Sa tingin ko, yun naman talaga yung hinahanap natin, at kaya rin nagkakaroon tayo ng isang impeachment process dahil ang hinahanap talaga natin ay yung leader na may puso para sa ating lahat. Kung hindi siya talaga tampat sa kanyang paglilingkod, siyempre, ang uunahin ay yung interest ng sarili. Pero yun ay walang epekto yan sa kapakanan natin lahat. Kaya I hope that whoever leaders we will have in the coming years, hindi lang naman dahil dito sa impeachment, ay yung talagang maghahanap ng solusyon sa problema na pang-araw-araw ng lahat ng Pilipino.
Dagdag lang po. There can be no healing without closure. So this is about accountability. So kailangan masuri natin, kailangan alamin natin, karapat-dapat pa ba na manatili sa pwesto yung na-impeach na opisyal. Dahil linabag niya yung konstitusyon at linabag din niya yung tiwala at inabuso ang tiwala ng taong bayan. So no closure or no healing without closure.
Sige, we have 5 minutes for media to ask questions from our two main.
Good morning. Hello. Good morning po. Ted Cordero po from GMA News Online. Can you run us through lang po what will we expect sa second week ng impeachment trial on the prosecutor side?
There would of course be additional witnesses. Nasabina na po yung ibang witnesses. At dadagdagan yung testimonya ni Senior Agent Mark Calilong. Papalakasin siyempre. Kasi pundasyon lang yon. So brick by brick, we're going to make it stronger. The evidence against VP Sara, against the respondent, is for Article 4. So mainly testimonial evidence. Alam nyo na po kung sino yung mga nasabina for next week. Sila Attorney Jeremy Loto, sila Captain Bello, and then si NBI Director Matibag, at meron din pong sabina kay Attorney Zulaika Lopez. So yun ang mga karagdagan ng mga ebidensya na sinimulan na at nagawa na yung pag-authenticate. Ang susunod naman is ano ibig sabihin ng mga video na yon. Ano yung resulta ng paano to mga sinuri at ano yung naging resulta ng pagsusuri dun sa mga binitawan ng mga salita ni VP Sara.
Hi, Sir Icongs. Good morning po. Isaiah from Billionario in Abante. Kung can we say ba yung second week will be more exciting? Mas papunta ba tayo sa exciting part? Kasi nga, 3 witnesses na yung haharap.
Palagi naman exciting ang impeachment. Siyempre, yung panimula natin ay kailangan nga ma-establish natin yung pundasyon. Ngayon naman, ang mismong iba't ibang features ng bahay ang makikita natin. Kaya sa tingin ko, lalo pang higting ang interest ng lahat ng nanonood sa darating na linggo at sa mga susunod pang mga linggo.
Si Kong Laila, baka merong reacts, ma'am. If ever, mas magiging kabang.
Abangan na lang po.
Sige po. Kahapon po nag-press con din ng ilang miyembro ng prosekusyon. Ang sinabi po nila kahapon na maliban daw na pinaprosecute po natin si VP Sara dahil nga sa grave threats. Kabilang rin daw sa dapat masira ay yung tinatawag na kultura na nakaugalian na raw ng mga Pilipino, yung salitang patayan, yung pagsisinungaling. Do you also share the same sentiments po na medyo ganun na po yung kultura ngayon dito sa Pilipinas?
Isa nga po dyan, isa sa mga mahalagang punto talaga yan, na yung asal ng isang napakataas na opisyal ng gobyerno, Vice President no less, ang nagpapakita ng ganyang asal. Mga threatening attitude, demeaning attitude, demeaning conduct, na pwede ka bang, basta ka na lang magbanta. So, yung culture nga of violence, alam nyo naman yung sa pamilya nila. And yung kanyang lengguwahe is about violence. Hindi lang dun sa pinaka-video, dun sa pagsasabi na meron na siyang kinausap na tao para ipapatay ang Pangulo, the First Lady, and the former Speaker. There are related videos na pinakita rin po last week at in-authenticate ni Senior Agent John Mark Calilong. Yung sabi niyang, in-imagine niya yung sarili niya na pupugutan niya ng ulo, cutting off the head of the President, and yung paghuhukay sa bangkay nung ama ng Pangulo at itatapon sa West Philippine Sea. What are those? Those events, a character of violence, and which could affect society. Nagagayahin ng marami na okay lang pala ang magbanta, okay lang pala ang pumatay. Sabi ng, kasi yan ang pinakita ng ating Vice President. So, meron hong epekto yan. Kasama po yan sa overall context ng mga narinig nating salita galing sa second highest official of the land.
Pero can we say po ba, since si FPRD, ganun din yung mga pananalita, kagaya po sa kanyang anak, can we say na yung culture ng Pilipinas in terms of pagpapatay, pagsisinungaling, ay mas lumala po during that administration?
Alam nyo, saludong-saludo ko kay Kong Laila dahil siya mismo ay naging biktima ng kultura na yan. And yet, kitang-kita nyo naman na wala siyang tinanim na galit at ang gusto lang niya ay yung tamang pamamahala. Sa tingin ko, malaking-malaki yung naging epekto, lalong-lalo na ng war on drugs sa ating kultura. Dahil naging normal yung makita natin yung dugo sa kalsada, naging normal na daan-daan na umaabot sa libo-libo ang pinapatay. At tingin ko, kailangan din pag-aralan ng ating mga sociologist at ng mga iba't ibang mga disiplina kung ito ba ay ngayon nagkaroon na ng koneksyon dun sa nangyayari mga violence sa ating mga paaralan. Kasi nga, kung ganun nga yan, then lalong-lalo na nangailangan na itugunan natin agad itong problema bago pa siya lumala pa.
Thank you po.
Sige, last siguro bago umalis sila, no? Sino magtatanong?
Tungkol sa proseso na ginamit ng NBI, dalawang tanong. Yung process na pag-authenticate nila, nung panahon ba ni Rodrigo Duterte, meron bang nasampahan ng kaso o nahusgahan dahil sa pag-authenticate ng NBI? Second, kailangan ko ring tanungin sa inyo, yung pag-authenticate, ma'am, ng sex video ninyo, NBI rin ang nag-authenticate. Maari din bang gamitin nila yung defense, no? Bilang para sabihin na tingnan mo, napalpak ang pag-authenticate ng video ni Senator De Lima? Kasi we're talking of authentication eh. Because in both cases, the NBI, underwent process of authentication. So I want to ask, during Duterte's time, I remember that there were people who were arrested for videos they posted online, no? Videos threatening the president. And because of that, they were arrested, and I think some were charged. And I don't know if somebody was ordered or jailed or convicted. But then it's also the NBI that issued the process of authentication for the video that helped put you in jail.
Wala po akong knowledge about yung mga sinasabi niyo pong authentication ng NBI. Including yung tungkol po sa yung kabastusan na sinasabi nila. Ang alam ko po, that's a fake video. So, and then yung ano po ba, yung tungkol naman po sa war on drugs. And I'm also not familiar with any of those na merong authentication. So,
Ma'am, not the war on drugs.
okay.
There were people who posted videos online threatening President Duterte during his time.
I would not know which ones were authenticated, and probably we can ask NBI, and probably can ask NBI Director Matibag if he knows about certain videos being authenticated. Pero meron nga hong mga ganon, no? At meron mga inaresto. Meron inaresto. Di ho ba? Yung si Ronel Mas, lawyer si Kong Chel.
Actually, yung mga kasong nabanggit ninyo, umabot yung ilan doon sa court, pero dinismiss yan ng trial courts dahil sabi nila wala naman talagang basehan. I do not know to what extent nagkaroon ng authentication ang NBI ng mga videos na yon. Ang alam ko lang noon ay basta't nung nakita sa social media, pinuntahan na agad. Actually, yung isang case, hinuli na wala namang warrant, na trauma pa nga yung naging biktima noon. And then later, inabsuelto siya, dinismiss mismo ng court at hindi na umabot sa trial ang kaso. Yung issue ng authentication na tulad ng nabanggit at na-describe ni Agent Calilong last week, ay sa pagkaalam ko, walang ganun nangyari nung panahon ng dating Pangulo. I'm not aware of that kind of authentication being done during that time.
Sa dalawa nating panauhin, medyo speculative, pero baguhin ko na lang ang tanong para walang mag-object. Pag po ba nawala ang Vice Presidente, alam po namin na mag-a-appoint ng Vice Presidente ang Pangulo. Sino po ba ang pwedeng ma-appoint? Ano ang qualification? Ano ang disqualifications?
Objection, speculative.
Kailangan po bang senador?
Sige. We'll have to let go of our two lawyers na member ng impeachment team. Kung may tanong pa kayo about will stay on. Kung may question kayo.
Yeah, habol lang. What's your take sa sinabi ni Attorney Zalaika Lopez na prepare for Typhoon Inday? Do you think meron yung kinalaman sa next week na pagharap niya sa impeachment trial or si Attorney Zalaika Lopez?
Meron ng double meaning yung ganyang salita, no? Totoo naman na merong Typhoon Inday. Now, kahapon ay nakita natin yung matinding pag-ulan, pagbaha dito sa NCR. So, literally, tama yun, prepare for Typhoon Inday. Pero pwede rin natin ma-interpret in another manner. It has to do with the impeachment. Meron na naman bang kababalaghan, pinaplano yung kabila, yung kampo ni VP Sara para makadiskarel, makadelay dito sa impeachment trial just because her chief of staff was subpoenaed. Bakit ganyan na naman? Di ba yung she was really in defense of her chief of staff. Yung nandun nga siya noon, kaya nga nakapag-hold siya ng live stream. Kahit bawal sa regulasyon ng House, yung mga sa House security, na meron dapat bisita, meron dapat bawal yung nag-stay ka doon sa place of detention, magdamag. Diba? That was a violation. Now ngayon, nasabina yung kanyang chief of staff, and then what is that all about na naman yung ganyang pananalita? Prepare for Inday of Typhoon Inday. So double meaning po yun. We just hope that she's just referring to the first meaning, the first literal meaning of that statement.
Siguro yung, ako kanina kasi nakita sa camera, ako kay Kong Echel, kung yung ibang bantang uhukayin yung bangkay at tatapon sa West Philippine Sea, yun ba talagang matatawag na grave threat?
On that note, we'd like to thank our two congresspersons here. Maraming salamat sa inyong pagdalo at pagpaliwanag. May iwan naman si Congressman Ace Barbers to answer more questions kung kailangan. We'll suspend our forum for mga 5 minutes while we Ray Powell ng Sea Light Institute of Stanford University. Sea Light Foundation. He will respond to yung latest news na Chinese scholars are claiming that Batanes is part of Chinese territory. Although Taiwan, I remember, they were the first to say that since the Treaty of Paris of 1898 did not include Batanes as part of Philippine territory, this was corrected by the Treaty of Washington. When was that? 1900, 2 years later. And that has been the official doctrine. Batanes is part and parcel of the Philippines, and that cannot be disputed. What are your thoughts on the Chinese position?
Check one. Okay, I'm going to just read a very short statement first, if that's okay. So, good morning. To begin with, let me allow me to pay tribute to the milestone we are marking this week, the courage, conviction, and skill of those extraordinary Filipinos who 10 years ago dared to take on and face down a rising superpower, and who defeated it on the strength of law and their belief that their cause was just. Their nation and the world owe them a tremendous debt, one which continues to inspire and guide today's Filipino patriots and all believers in the importance of a rule of law that stands above any one nation's coercive will. They have earned the deep respect and admiration of their countrymen, as well as my own. Now let me turn my attention to the events of this past week. 2 days ago, Sea Light broke the story that a symposium of Chinese academics assembled to justify China's claims to major new parts of the exclusive economic zones of Japan and the Philippines and the related patrols east of the Bashi Channel had unanimously concluded that the Batanes Islands belonged to China. Since then, senior Philippine officials have united to firmly denounce that claim. But some commenters have framed these responses as an overreaction and have sought to dismiss the whole affair as a mere academic exercise unworthy of a reply. That approach, in my opinion, either misunderstands or misrepresents the nature of China's playbook, a gray zone and information campaign for maritime East Asia that has been on clear display for more than 5 decades. Those who dismiss it are playing directly into Beijing's hands. So let me be clear about what I believe is happening here. The Batanes claim cannot be separated from what China is doing on the water. Since the 1st of June, China's Coast Guard has begun running continuous patrols east of Taiwan into the Philippine Sea and has been framing those patrols as necessary to protect its sovereign rights and interests. This new sovereignty claim and those sovereignty-framed patrols are inextricably linked. The scholars themselves were clear about this. The Japan-Philippines maritime talks, which are an entirely routine exercise under international law and norms, were not the cause of this. They were the pretext. China did what it wanted to do anyway, to push its patrols outside the first island chain, beyond anything it had previously claimed, beyond even its own 2023 standard map and the 10-dash line. The scholars were assembled afterward to supply a legal veneer. And for Beijing, a veneer is enough when backed by military and paramilitary force. Some are making much of the fact that no Chinese government official has formally claimed Batanes. And that is true, and we made it clear from the very beginning. But do not mistake silence for restraint. When your government Coast Guard is already running intrusive patrols into the area now being claimed, you do not need a government spokesperson to read the claim aloud. The patrols are the government's position. Filtering the initial rhetorical case through academics and state media is a feature, not a bug. Those who have paid attention to the Chinese Communist Party's Gray Zone campaign to control maritime East Asia are not fooled. They have learned from China's creeping expansionism across places like Mischief Reef, Scarborough Shoal, Whitsun Reef, and Escoda Shoal, and are wise to apply those same lessons to Batanes. To give Beijing the benefit of the doubt now, you would have to have been asleep for the last 5 decades. Beijing has not earned the suspension of disbelief. Thank you.
Ray, good morning to you, Ray. I'm here. Has China effectively opened a new front in the West Philippine Sea by shifting its focus towards the Basi Channel?
Yeah, although I would just, as a technical matter, I guess I would say it's not even the West Philippine Sea, right? It's now actually, yes, but I would say absolutely it has. These patrols are, again, outside the 9 or 10-dash line. They are outside the West Philippine Sea. They're outside the first island chain. This is new.
As for my follow-up question, what is the significance of the Basi Channel for the Philippines and for China? For both?
Yes. So for China, it is a key supply route, and it is a key route by which the United States and others might resupply Taiwan in a, say, a quarantine or a blockade situation, or even, of course, God forbid, a conflict. For the Philippines, it is the Philippines' northern flank, and a place to which the Philippines has legitimate rights and interests, sovereign rights included, and so it is and what we would call Batanes in that framework, we would call that, in military terms, we would say that is key terrain.
In China, is claiming the Batanes as part of their territory, isn't it good for us? Because automatically, the Mutual Defense Treaty will be triggered once the Chinese forces enter that area, which is uncontested.
I would say that as a rhetorical matter, if I were in the Chinese embassy in Manila, of course they are my fan club, but if I were them, this would not be a great week, right? It's a very difficult week to try to make any other case, because this is one of those things when China not only claims uninhabited reefs and shoals in the West Philippine Sea, but claims inhabited islands inhabited by Filipinos. That is a significantly difficult thing for them to defend, which is part of why I think that they wanted to advance this case loudly enough so that they could refer to it later, but quietly enough so that it wouldn't get attention in the Philippines, which is why we made sure that it got the attention it deserved.
So the Batanes issue is more than tripwire for the Chinese.
So I think the Batanes issue for the Chinese is an attempt to do something that its activities on the water demanded, but they had a very hard time justifying. So they really wanted to be able to lay claim to waters east of the Basi Channel. They wanted to have patrols there. They wanted to, and they wanted to blame it on someone else. So they blamed the Japan-Philippines delimitation talks. And they wanted something to hang their hat on to say that it was legally justified. Now, I don't think that their legal justification based on ownership of the Batanes Islands is going to survive any kind of international scrutiny, but all they really require for their narrative is enough ambiguity and enough muddying the waters so that they can say, well, you know, it's disputed.
Narratives, battle of narratives. Kong Ace, bakit kapuna-puna yung mga kakampi ni Vice President sa issue ng impeachment, kakampi din ng China sa issue ng territorial claim nila sa territorial dispute sa Pilipinas?
Well, sa aking palagay, ito ay isang paraan, no, na maipahayag nila ang kanilang naratibo na legal yung kanilang ginagawa. In fact, we have contested this several times, even to a point that the Philippine government went up to the arbitral committee and came up with a decision saying that everything that the Chinese government did in that part of the ocean is actually under Philippine territory. So again, they have to be supported by the narratives that they spread all over the country. Kaya nga, yun ang ginagamit nila. Most of the bloggers, no, na identified na sa kanilang panig ay nagpapakalat ng ganitong klaseng naratibo na kung saan sinasabi nila na hindi naman na ano yan, hindi naman na it's a kumbaga open space for everybody. At yan ay may historical basis daw na ang pagmamayari niyan ay China, which we definitely contested. Kaya nga tayo umabot do sa arbitral committee. Now, with this new issue about yung Batanes, yung Basi Channel, again, hindi na ito it is another part of bullying, no? They wanted this is what we call creeping invasion, no? Obviously, they succeeded in getting some of the territories in the West Philippine Sea. They went up a little bit more, going north the Philippine Islands because, as Ray has stated, this is a good location for their, I don't know what kind of a military term it is. It's a flanking territory or flanking, prepositioning the military installation of of Beijing. So again, kailangan masuportahan nila ng nilang naratibo Kaya nga nakakalungkot isipin na meron tayong mga bloggers, meron tayong sumasang-ayon sa ginagawa ng mga bloggers na ito o yung nagpo-post in favor of Chinese government dito sa usapin ng West Philippine Sea at ngayon usapin ng Batanes.
I'd like to ask Ray Powell here. It seems that this is not the first time that the claim that Batanes is part of China or even Taiwan. It surfaced in 2001 when Taiwanese scholars said that the Treaty of Paris of 1998 did not include Batanes as part of Philippine territory. Pero this was corrected by a subsequent Treaty of Washington, that clearly delineated Batanes as part of Philippine territory from way back the Spanish period. What do you think of this?
So when we have positions taken by people in a democracy like Taiwan, it's different than having positions taken by scholars in an autocracy like China. So if I, as a United States citizen, write to the New York Times and say, I believe that the Empire State Building should be sponsored by Jollibee, then people will say, you're a very nice man, and I'm sure you mean well, but we're not listening to you. Because I'm a private citizen. I can have any opinion I want, and people do. You can go throughout any democracy and find people who have all kinds of very, very strange opinions, including, say, in Taiwan, people who believe that Taiwan should own Batanes. But it's not state policy to declare Batanes as a province of Taiwan. And Taiwan is not running Coast Guard patrols in the Philippines EEZ to assert that jurisdiction. China is doing those things. They are asserting their jurisdiction by way of their Coast Guard patrols. They announced that they were sovereignty patrols, and the scholars who were assembled came up with exactly the position they believed their government wanted them to come up with.
Ray, when will or where will China stop in claiming so many islands? Because the claim over Batanes came from the narrative, sabi nila, historical, that the people of Batanes came from Taiwan, and they are the Austronesians. The Austronesians, they are also the Igorots. So they will claim, and so are the Pacific Islander. They are all Austronesian, so they will claim also Hawaii as part of their territory?
I think that what China has demonstrated is that its claims are constrained only by its ambitions. They are more than happy to construct a narrative and come up with evidence to justify whatever claim they would like to come up with. And this is where I think the Batanes claim needs to be taken more seriously than some are taking it. The Philippine government has been very, very clear and very strong. But I've noticed that there have been articles written in the last couple of days that seek to sort of poo-poo this thing or say it's not a big deal. Again, I think that misunderstands how China does these things, and there's a clear playbook. You start with establishing some kind of a groundwork that says we have legitimate claims, and as at least we define them, and so that over a long period of time you can say we have historic claims. They go back years. We started claiming this a long time ago. And then you build the history around the narrative. And so, who knows where China's claims end? In many cases, it depends on where it believes its capability can carry it.
Speaking of ambitions, Ray, is this latest move by Beijing indicative that China is expanding its territorial ambitions beyond its previous claims?
Yeah, I think that this particular claim and the accompanying Coast Guard patrols are a really significant event because we see it pushing beyond its own 10-dash line. So if you look at the 2023 standard map of China, the 10th dash that was drawn in 2023 is just off the coast of Taiwan. These patrols run far to the east, far outside of that line. So whereas before what they did was they drew lines on the water or lines on a map and then filled that in over time, here they're pushing the ships out and now they're trying to come up with a new legal justification. So what will the next standard map look like? If this is an indication, it is pretty good chance that the new standard map includes the waters east of Batanes, and perhaps Batanes itself.
Isn't it that some time back, I don't know where this came from, but the idea that Palawan is part of China?
So that one has been sort of active on Chinese social media, so that hasn't quite earned the same status as this one that came out of a university symposium in Jinan. They have a very active and highly patriotic social media ecosystem. And actually, the claim to Batanes was in that ecosystem for a long time. So, could there someday be a university study that says, Palawan, maybe? Yeah, could happen. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but yes, I would say I would not give that the same weight that I would give the Batanes. I'm much more, and also the China Coast Guard patrols in the vicinity of Palawan are driven still by the 9-dash line claim or the 10-dash line claim. The ones east of Batanes are claiming new waters, so I would not link the China Coast Guard patrols near Palawan as being linked to any social media claims to Palawan.
Okay. Naalala ko lang, Kong Ace, kayo maraming, tatanong ko to kasi, yun na nga, ang premise ng aking tanong, generally, yung mga vloggers yung supporters ng mga kalaban ninyo, sila din yung supporters ng China sa mga social issues. Nung panahon nyo dyan sa Kongreso, may mga investigation kayong ginawa, natuklasan, itong mga vloggers na ito were trained in China. Marami kayo ng privilege speech at binansagan nga kayong anti-China so dito ba sa impeachment na ito, hindi lamang yung mga supporters na nakalaban nyo, kung hindi suportado ng isang bansa?
Hindi ako magtataka kung ito ay magiging susuportahan ng China dito kasi sa usapin ng laban ng naratibo. This is a narrative war nakikita natin kung ano yung papabor sa gusto nila o ano yung papabor dun sa kanilang naratibo, lahat yun susuportahan ng bawat isa na nagsasalita na kakampi nila tungkol dito. Now, yes, I've been vocal. When I was a member of Congress, I was vocal against the Chinese aggression in the West Philippine Sea. At dahil dito, tayo po inabansagan na anti, which is not the case, isa doon sa aking deliver na privilege speech when I was a member of Congress, yung sinasabi ko na itong mga vloggers, which I call narco-vloggers and pogo-vloggers, yan yung kasagsagan ng issue ng Quad Committee, na kung saan inimbestigahan natin yung drug war, inimbestigahan natin yung pogo operations dito sa bansa, na nakita natin na these are all operated by Chinese, and drugs were being brought in by Chinese. They smuggle this. That's why we went against this. We investigated them in Congress and came up with a report. And because of that, as a result, they filed cases against me and our colleagues, which fortunately was dismissed, Ariel.
Naalala ko itong last month ba, merong Chinese na huli, Peter? Pamilya bang media doon sa kay Peter Shuang? Na nahuli na nagpapanggap na Pilipino. Tapos lumabas yung mga dokumento, nakakuha siya ng Philippine passport, yung request for Philippine passport, endorsed by a Filipino-Chinese businessman, at may notation sa baba ng kanyang application. Ang pangalan ay APC. Panahong siyang Secretary ng Foreign Affairs. So, with this, correct ko lang kasi nasubaybayan ko yung ginawa yung investigation tungkol dyan. Yung bang mga ganyang narratives, tapos yung creeping narratives na inilalabas ng mga social media vloggers nila dito, yan ba'y orchestrated? At orchestrated ba yung pag-iba dun sa seemingly mga politiko na hindi pro-China?
Ako, naniniwala ako na ito ay estratehiya para gibain, no? Yung mga apparently hindi pro-China. At ito'y napatunayan dun sa expose ni Senator Tolentino before the 2025 May elections, di ba? Naglabas siya ng mga dokumento, meron siyang pinakitang mga resibo, so to speak, para patunayan yung kanyang allegation na lahat ng kumontra doon sa naratibo ng China ay hindi lamang binabash, no? Okay lang yung bashing kung tutuusin Pero ang ano dito yung talagang pinagtutulungan ka para sirain ang iyong pagkatao at siyempre masunod yung kanilang naratibong gustong sundan ng ating mga mamamayan. But I honestly believe that they never succeeded in this. Hanggang ngayon, patuloy ang kanilang pagpapakalat ng mga negatibong naratibo at natural at mga fake news. No? Ito ay maaaring sinusuportahan. Hindi ako magtataka kung ito ay sinusuportahan ng mas malaking grupo na mukhang galing sa China.
Wala na. Baka yung South China Morning Post, may tanong? Yes. Okay. Ray Powell?
Actually, for former Congressman Barbers, a military official told me last night, because it was the fellowship night of the military chief, Bronner, last night. A military official told me last night that he remembers that the Chinese embassy, when it applied to open a consulate in Ilocos Norte, specifically included Batanes as part of the consulate's jurisdiction. And that was actually granted. So I want to get your comment on that. What are the implications on the fact that the Chinese embassy itself had applied to open a consulate, and it was granted later on, Ilocos Norte, and it specifically said that Batanes was part of it?
Well, to my mind, that particular act alone tells us that they recognize that this is part of the Philippine territory and Philippine jurisdiction. So I guess now they're probably changing their mind, and they're going towards that direction of claiming that this is part historically daw, this is part of their territory. The fact that they recognized, they even officially recognized the consulate representing that part of the country in China tells everybody that this is our territory. This is part of the Philippine Islands.
I would just like to add to that. I think that the silence coming from the Chinese embassy in Manila following this news has been remarkable. I think that, first, I don't think that they have any instructions as to what they're supposed to say about this. They are in a spot where if they affirm the finding, obviously, first of all, that obviously this is extremely unpopular in the Philippines. When we broke the news, the post that we put up, I think right now is about 3.8 million views. That's a lot for us. I mean, I am not a K-pop star. I don't get, I don't tend to get 3.8 million views for anything. So, Ray-pop, yes. But so I think that this puts them in a difficult position because I'm not sure that they can walk away from it either. So I think, probably they're likely to say that's a very interesting, if they say anything at all, which perhaps they won't. I think maybe they're hoping this will blow over. If they say anything at all, I think they will say, this is a very hotly debated topic in our academic community. They've come up with some very interesting findings that I'm sure our senior officials and relevant agencies are studying very closely, and leave it at that for now. For now, it's enough for them to have the ambiguity because, of course, they are already running the patrols.
Ray, I'm sure you are very much aware of the political noise happening in our country at the moment. Specifically,
I'm sorry, something going on that I should be aware of?
No, politically. This is brought about by the ongoing impeachment against the Vice President. How important is Beijing's perspective on the issue? And from your vantage point, do you think China will interfere directly or indirectly on this matter?
So I have a very solid policy of not commenting on Philippine domestic politics, if I can help it. That would be, I think, first of all, it's not our area of expertise, and secondly, it just is not helpful, I don't think, to the discussion to have foreigners coming in. What I will say is that China interferes in domestic politics, not just in the Philippines, but in the United States and elsewhere, with regularity. It is part of their national policy. And we have documented at Sealight a lot of the ways that China's United Front Work Department has been active in the Philippines, in the places, for example, in Chinese language media, Chinese language education, the Reunification Council for Taiwan, other kinds of places like that. So China has every intention of interfering in your politics, and I will leave it to others to talk about what form that takes. Thank you.